This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Hello, my dear listeners and my dear viewers who are watching this wonderful episode. I would like to welcome you on Hear My True Story podcast. It is me, your host, Otako, on this wonderful episode of Hear My True Story podcast. Well, last week's we had a conversation or episodes about forest kindergarten, call them forest daycare centers, and then we also focused on Waldorf kindergarten, or call them Waldorf daycare centers in Germany. Well, today, as I promised, I'm going to share with you a wonderful episode about bilingual and international daycare centers in Germany, or call them bilingual and international kindergartens in Germany. Well, as I mentioned in the previous episodes, this episode targets people who want to know more about daycare centers in Germany. Migrant families who have decided to move to Germany with children, and they're wondering where do I find a right daycare center that can support the needs of my child? Then this is the right episode that you are watching on Hear My True Story podcast. I mean, my target is not only the people who have just moved to Germany, or maybe only the migrant families. It's for anyone who is interested to get to understand the system of daycare centers in Germany. Maybe someone is thinking of moving to Germany and they are like, well, if I move to Germany, how do I find the right daycare center for my child? This is the episode for you. And there are those who are not living in Germany, but they are interested to get to know about daycare centers in Germany. Well, this is also your episode, and there are those who just want to hear stories from Otako and maybe stories from other people. Thank you for tuning in on Hear My True Story podcast and also on Hear My True Story YouTube channel. And for those who are new on this podcast, this is Hear My True Story podcast. If you don't want to miss any interesting new episodes on Hear My True Story podcast, well, subscribe. And for those who are listening to this episode on the various podcast streaming platforms, you can also subscribe so that you don't miss the next new episodes. Well, without taking a lot of your time, let us dive into the topic of today so that we don't waste people's time. So, the question goes on, what are bilingual and international kindergartens? So, bilingual and international kindergartens, as you hear the title, or as you hear the word bilingual and international kindergartens or daycare centers, it is clear. For bilingual and international kindergartens, they focus on more than one language. For example, if you are living in Germany, which is German as the major language, but for the international or bilingual kindergartens or daycare centers, the daycare center would focus on German as the main language and supplement it with other languages. That could be English, that could be French, that could be Spanish, it could be any other language. So here, the pre-educators will speak German and another language. For example, if a daycare center in the group, there are two pre-educators or two educators in that group, one would focus on speaking German and the other one will focus on another language, let me say English. That means the day-to-day activities of the kids and communication would be in two languages, English and German, period, if that's where they focus. And another thing about the international daycare centers is that they will focus also on multilingual culture activities. The children in that daycare center will have the opportunity to experience more than one cultural activity. For example, if they celebrate festivals, they will celebrate festivals of German culture, and also they will celebrate festivals of other cultures. They will celebrate festivals of different religions because they are international daycare centers. So the point here in the daycare center of bilingual and international daycare center is that children naturally experience the daily activities with different languages and cultures, not in the way that they are designed for them to learn them academically, but through play, through fun, through games. That's how the children would experience these different languages. But I'll go deeper into that in my next conversation. So I'm sure someone is now thinking, well, how do international daycare centers work? How do bilingual and international daycare centers work? This is how they work. As I mentioned, I give an example. If my child is speaking English at home and German at home, so myself as Otako, I will be speaking English to my child. Then the mother would speak German. So this child is being raised with two languages. But as a parent, I'm interested to take my kid or my child to a daycare center where there is German as the major language and then supplemented with English as another international language. So that in that daycare center, the educators would divide themselves. One educator would speak English and another educator would speak German. So the day would be designed for that child to listen to English and German. That's an example, and that's how it works in the daycare center that is bilingual and international daycare center. So with this method of having two professionals speaking different languages, it would help the child to learn to listen to the sounds of different languages on the daily activities. From whatever happens in the daycare center, they experience it in two languages. And definitely someone may be thinking right now, okay, how do they? Do they only speak to them? Well, in the daycare center, there are different activities. For example, songs. For example, if I speak English in the daycare center as an educator, I would sing songs with the children in the daycare center that are in English. And if my colleague speaks German in the daycare center, then my colleague would also sing songs in German with the children. That makes the children to learn different songs in different languages. And as an educator whose profession in this job working with children, I know how important songs and music is for the development of language. So through songs, the kids will learn other languages. And also there are books. In the international daycare center or in the bilingual and international daycare center, the books that are there in the bookshelf are in different languages. That means the child would have a chance, someone to read for them a book in English, or maybe read for them a book in Arabic, or maybe read for them a book in French, and then another educator would read for them a book in German, and then another educator would also read for them a book in French. So the child would experience different stories in books with different languages. You see how it works? Simple. It's not forced, but the child wants to decide. Because children also decide. I would say, yeah, I want to listen to this story in English. So that child would be catered for also to enjoy a new language. And as I mentioned, there is also cultural activities. For example, in German, where Catholic and Protestant is more of the major religion, so they would celebrate Advent calendar, they would celebrate Christmas, they would celebrate Easter holidays. However, if in that daycare center, they appreciate multicultural cultural activities. Then they would also celebrate other religions like Muslim festivals would also be celebrated in that daycare center. So that makes the child understand that, well, the world is full of different cultures, religions, and practices. You see how beautiful it is for the bilingual and international daycare center. So, in a simple way, that's how daycare centers that are bilingual and international in Germany work with children, as I have broken it down for you. Because some people may think, well, how can they maintain that to speak more languages? It's only through the activities that happen in the day-to-day activities or concepts of the daycare center. So, if I speak from my perspective as an educator here in Germany, but also as a parent, but at the same time, someone who's working with children, bilingual and international daycare centers bring a lot of advantages with them. For families that come from other countries and they decided to move to Germany, it would be good for them if their children can maintain their mother language in the country where they decided to move. So that gives the opportunity for that child to maintain, maybe if it is English, their mother tongue, to maintain English too in the daycare center. Because children spend a lot of hours in the daycare center, 6 hours in the daycare center. That means for them, they are going to experience 2 languages and they are able to maintain that, okay, I speak German and also English, or maybe also Spanish in the daycare center. That also gives me a chance at home to speak in Spanish and German with my parents, so I maintain that. So the advantage is that the children will experience this language every day at the daycare center. And another advantage that comes with bilingual and international daycare centers, it is proved by research that the cognitive of a child develops very well when they speak more than one language. The problem-solving skills of the child also develop because this child would be listening to languages, different sounds of different languages, and this helps the development of their cognitive. It develops their problem-solving skills. It develops their creativity. That's how it is when you speak more than one language. And this is proved. You can find it out online. You can research it anywhere, and it will be proved that, yeah, more than one language is good for the child's development of their cognitive skills. Another thing that is good for it is I mentioned it, but the culture awareness for the children to know that there are more cultures, and that brings the chance for them to celebrate them, but also to develop empathy. The children will develop empathy for others. This is very important for child's development, empathy. For them to celebrate more cultural festivals in the daycare center or more religious festivals in the daycare center makes them to have an open mind. A mind where that the world is not one thing. The world is full of beautiful, colorful people with colorful cultures, with colorful religions that are really nice to celebrate and to understand why they do so. So that's a beautiful thing. So we would find that in the international or bilingual kindergartens, educators from different cultures and different religions would celebrate such festivals with the children in the daycare center. So for parents who are coming from a migration background, or maybe for parents who are also German, but they would like their children to celebrate other festival activities in Germany, so the bilingual and international kindergarten is there for you. So as I have said, it comes with a lot of advantages, but also for the children who grew up with more than one language, in the future when they move to schools, they move into the work professionals, They are advantageous, they are speaking more than one language. That makes them stand a chance to work in different areas that require more than one language as a skill. So that's nice. You could work anywhere where people speak Arabic, you could speak with them Arabic. Where people speak English, you could speak with them English. Where people speak Spanish, you could speak with them Spanish. So that's the beautiful thing of speaking more than one language for the children. When they grow up, they are multilingual. So as a parent or maybe as a caretaker, you need to be able also to understand, what do I consider when choosing a daycare center for my child? When I'm saying, well, I'm going to choose a bilingual and international daycare center for my child. These are the things that maybe you could consider. So one, you could look at what languages do these daycare centers focus on. If you're living in a city in Germany and you realize I want a bilingual and international kindergarten, I would look at the languages that they focus on, because every daycare center, they have a concept, and some of these concepts you can find them on the website of that daycare center. So you go there, you download their concept, you read through the concept, and they get to know, okay, they focus on English, they focus on Spanish, they focus on Swahili, they focus on Arabic, they focus on any other language that you're interested in. Then you base on the language that you see that you'd like your child to experience as they grow up. That would be one of the reasons for you to decide the right daycare center, the right bilingual and international daycare center. They call them bilingual, but they could also be multilingual and international daycare center, because they are daycare centers that speak more than 5 languages, where they have educators in the group that speak more than 5 languages. That means your child is going to experience more than 5 languages in the day. But then you should also be able to maintain those languages back home. Yes. And also another thing that you can look at when choosing the bilingual and international kindergarten is the cultural activities that they celebrate or that they focus on. So you have to look at, okay, do they celebrate the cultural activities that are of my interest for the child? Through that, you decide, do they celebrate different cultural traditional holidays? Through that, you decide. So that's how you could choose a right daycare center for your child. As a parent, as a caretaker who moved to Germany and is there thinking of the right daycare center for their child without having their children to lose their cultural traditional practices and cultural festivals, well, look at some of those international daycare centers in Germany. Well, I've talked a lot about it, but also there's another factor that can be looked at before you decide. It's the cost and availability. Our daycare center system in Germany is quite complex, but the costs that are for bilingual and international daycare centers are a bit higher than the state or town run daycare centers. So you have to look at the cost. How much will it cost me to have my child to be in the daycare center? So that is very, very, very important. And also the availability. If you're living in a smaller city, some of these small cities in Germany may not have these bilingual and international kindergartens. So you have no choice. You can't just choose a daycare center that is so far away from where you live, and then you'll be in difficulties of taking your child to the daycare center and picking them. That would be a story of another day about choosing the right place or the distances. So as a parent, you look at the costs and you look at the availability of these daycare centers. You may be interested in your child to have Swahili as the second language in Germany, but it is not available, then it will not be possible. So as a parent who's coming from a Swahili-speaking country in East Africa, just like me, then you will have challenges to find it. So it is not available, so you won't be able to do it or to find it and take your child there. So my dear viewers and my dear listeners, as I conclude, I want to just say to you a little bit of highlights of what we talked about. What we talked about today was bilingual and international kindergartens. The bilingual focus on more than one language and more than one cultural festival or religious festival that they practice with the children in the daycare center. The bilingual and international kindergartens, ideally, they are good for parents or for families that need their children to speak more than one language, their children to practice more than one cultural traditional festival. Then that's the right daycare center for your child. So for my dear viewers and my dear listeners, before you decide to choose whether your child goes to a bilingual and international kindergarten, this is my advice. You as a parent, or maybe you as a caretaker, you need to go there, visit the bilingual and international kindergartens, experience their day, and then based on that to decide if your child would be able to enjoy such a daycare center. It is very important for parents to first visit these daycare centers, and then you experience how their day-to-day runs, and through that you'll be able to decide if your child can be part of such a daycare center in Germany. So my dear viewers, my dear listeners, parents with migration backgrounds, parents who decided to move to Germany, and those who are thinking about moving to Germany, well, you'd have to do a little more research about the wonderful daycare center system in Germany. However, today I've just tried to speak a little bit about it. So, in the next episode, the coming week, we shall try to speak about the integrative daycare centers, or call them integrative kindergarten or integrative daycare centers. So next week, I'll try to focus on that and share with you what are they all about, what do you expect if you take your child to integrative daycare centers or integrative kindergarten. But also to mention something before I finish is that some daycare centers in Germany have in their concept most of these method of working with children. They fuse them, they bring them together. You may find a daycare center that is not bilingual and international, but they appreciate the fact that multilingual or bilingual educating of children is important for their development. And such kitas, if you read in their concept and you realize that they focus also on other languages, then those kitas would also be good for you as a parent for your child's development. So my dear listeners, before I say bye, I want to say for the new viewers on this YouTube channel, you can subscribe so that you don't miss any new coming episodes. And for those who are listening for the first time to hear my True Story podcast on your podcast streaming platforms, please subscribe so that you don't miss our next new episodes. Well, I'm happy always for the people who are leaving comments and suggestions what they would like us to talk about. I know there's a viewer who commented and said, well, could you talk about how do I be active as a parent in the daycare center for my child? Well, I will try to arrange a wonderful episode where I can talk about that, why it is important and why it is good for you as a parent, a parent and a caretaker to be active in the daily activities of the daycare center for your child. That will be an episode of another time. But for now, as Otako, the host of this wonderful YouTube channel, Hear My True Story and Hear My True Story podcast, I would like to say bye for now. Till next time on this same YouTube channel and on this same podcast, I would like to say bye for now. Till next time.